Okay, welcome back for round 2 of our Motzei Shabbos Marathon in Masechtas Menachos. We have a really nice crowd with us as we welcome in Mel Zachter, A.B. Spry, Yaakov Warman, Menachem Umansky, Dr. Guy, Saba, Michal, Berish Gesseman, Yitzi Fuchs, Yisrael Fisher, Dr. Black, Shimon Klein, Marshall Castle, a.k.a. Piggle, Cian Cohn, Mark Frankel, Shelley Zeitman, Chaim Lerner, Shimon Deer, and wonderful family, Rabbi Kranz, Eddie Chazan, Nachman Chapley, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Gabriel Epstein, Irving Fishbaum, Rabbi Keneal, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yitzi Muller, Danny Vogel, Ilya Shutman, Chaim Braun, Abe Arbach. I saw Richard Rosenzweig earlier tonight. We have here in the shul Michal Avram and Ruvain Shannet holding the fort down here in the shul. We are holding at the new Mishnah on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis. This is again a concept that we learned in Masechtas Zvachim, that you cannot combine Achilas Adam and Achilas Mizbeach. So therefore, lechal kechatzi zayis ulahakter kechatzi zayis. If Marshall has in mind to eat a half a zayis after its time and to smoke up a half a zayis after its time, even though they're both criminal thoughts, kosher. She'ein achila v'aktara mitztarfim. We don't combine achilas adam and achilas mizbeach. We don't combine the eating of a person and the eating of the mizbeach. Now, so now the Gemara says a diak. Taima delechol ulahakter. That's only if Marshall had in mind to eat a half a zayis and to smoke up a half a zayis. Hol lechol v'lechol davar she'ein darkei lechol. But if Marshall had in mind to eat a half a kazayis of the shirayim and to eat a half a kazayis of the kmitza, now that's a davar she'ein darkei lechol. You don't eat that. It is mitzdarif. That's what it's mashma. But it doesn't say that in the beginning of the Mishnah. V'aketani reisha, lechol davar sh'darkei lechol. It's only if you have in mind to eat something that's normally eaten, that's a shrayim, or lahakter davar sh'darkei lahakter, and to smoke up something that normally smoked up. And so it clearly says davar sh'darkei lechol in, only something that's usually eaten. She'ein darkei lechol loy, but if you have in mind to eat something that's not eaten, like the kmitza, it doesn't combine. So then it comes out that this Mishnah is not like the first Mishnah. Says, well, that's not a problem. Mantana, who's the author of our Mishnah? Rabbi Yirmiyah Hamani Rabbi Eliezer he. Rabbi Eliezer Taka says, Da'ama mechashvin me'achilas adam la'achilas mizbeach. You could have in mind from achilas adam la'achilas mizbeach, or achilas mizbeach la'achilas adam. You could have in mind that you're going to eat something that's normally put on the mizbeach. Ditnan hakaymitz etzamincha. If you take a kmitza from the mincha, lechol davar she'ein darkei lechol, to let's say eat the kmitza, or lahakter davar she'ein darkei lahakter, or to smoke up the shirayim, which is not done, kosher. Rebbe Eliezer Paisel. So the diak would be good according to Rebbe Eliezer, because according to Rebbe Eliezer, you could be mitzdarf a chatzik kazayis of that which is normally eaten with a chatzik kazayis of that which is not normally eaten, namely the kmitza. Abai doesn't want to learn that this Mishnah is not like the first Mishnah. Abai amar afilu temer rabbanan, but the diak that you're making is wrong. It says that you can't be mitzdarf a half a kazayis of what's eaten on the by a human, a half a kazayis what's eaten on the mizbeach, which we wanted to be medayik. Loy tema hol lechol v'lechol davar she'ein darkei lechol. Don't say it means to eat a half a kazayis of shirayim and a half a kazayis of the kmitza. That wouldn't be mitzdarf either. Ela ema lechol v'lechol davar she'darkei lechol. It means that you could be mitzdaref lechol a half a kazayis of chutzlas manoi and a half a kazayis of chutzla mekaimai. You could be mitzdaref that. But both are talking about with the Shirayim. Says the Gemara, we wouldn't need that diak. That's a Beferish Mishnah. Or my Kamash Malan. Why would we need such a diak? Kabehedya Ketanila. It says that Beferish, that if Marshal has in mind, Lecha Kazayas Bechutz Kazayas L'macher, to eat a Kazayas outside a Kazayas L'macher, since he adulterated it, it's not going to be pickled. Kazayas L'macher, Kazayas Bechutz. Again, it's not going to be pickled. But he also says that you could combine Kechatzi Zayas Bechutz or Kechatzi Zayas L'macher, half a Kazayas with a machshav of Chutz and half a Kazayas of machshav L'macher, or Kechatzi Zayas L'macher, or Kechatzi Zayas Bechutz. It says puzzle. It is disqualified. So you see that you could be mitzvah two different ideas, a half a Zayas of Chutz Zmane and a half a Zayas of Chutz Mekayme. Just vain by Karis. So the Gemara says, so Asulamali, why would we need the diak from our Mishnah? And if this is just a Chazara, lechol to eat half a kazayis of the Shirayim, v'lechol davar shein darkei lechol, if it's coming to tell me that, Kamash Malon the mitztaref, but we clearly said, Mereisha Shmat Minah, from the Reisha we see that you can't be mitztaref. You can only be mitztaref something that's darkei lechol or something that's darkei lahakter. You can't be mitztaref a kazayis of the a chatzik kazayis of the kamitza, because that's a davar shein darkei lechol. Says the Gemara, maybe you're going about this the wrong way. Maybe there is no diak. It's just teaching us this din, that a half a kazayas of what is eaten and a half a kazayas that's smoked up, it's telling you can't combine it, because it can't be combined, that which is eaten with that which is smoked up. Says the Gemara, no, that it can't be for its own. There must be a diak, because for its own teaching, that we know mediyuka dereisha shmat mina. That we also know from a diak from the first Mishnah. The ashta ma lechol v'lechol davar she'ein darkei lechol. If you can't even combine a chatzi shirayim, chatzi kazayis of the shirayim, with a chatzi kazayis of the kamitza, even though they're both eaten by humans, it's talking about human eating. Even so, like mitzdaref lechol lahakter, to combine that which is eaten with that which is smoked up, surely mibai. So it must be that there's some diak there. Says the Gemara, no, there is no diak. And the Mishnah is telling you a chiddush. You're right. From the first Mishnah, we know that you can't combine a chatzik kazayis of the shirayim with a chatzik kazayis of the kmitza, because nobody eats a chatzik kazayis of the kmitza. That's not normal. But here, where Marshall has in mind to eat a half a kazayas after its time and to smoke up a half a kazayas after its time, those are both normal activities. In lechol lahakter, it's trichalei. So kedai t'ramina hasimhu, where he has in mind to eat a half a kazayas of shirayim and a half a kazayas of the kmitza, that's not going to work. He's not doing something that's done. You don't eat the kamitza, you smoke it up. Aval hacha, where he has in mind to eat a half a kazayas of the shirayim and to smoke up a half a kazayas of the kamitza, those are both things that are done. Aval hacha b'haiki urchei kamachashiv, this is normal. Or b'haiki urchei kamachashiv, and that's normal. Ema litzdarf, I might think it should combine. Kamash malan, that you cannot combine achilas adam and achilas mizbech, even though they're both properly done. Hadrullah kol ha-menachos, hadrullah kol ha-menachos, hadrullah kol ha-menachos. Now,
can I ask a question on what we said with the Gemara right before?
I guess so.
Okay, we have a Havamina that it's Rabbi Eliezer, but doesn't Rabbi Eliezer hold you need the whole thing? Didn't we say you need to have a machshava for the whole thing, not just the kazais? What's this Havamina that Katzi Zayis? It's nothing would be mitzvah because you need the whole thing.
It's a good question. I have to think about it. It's a good question. It's a good question. Okay. Says the Mishnah, getting back to Marshall, our resident troublemaker. Hakaymet says hamincha. If Marshall takes a kemitza from the mincha lechol shireha to eat the remnants, or lahaktir kumtza lemachar, or to smoke up the kemitza tomorrow, Moed Rabbi Yaisi bezeshu pigel. Rabbi Yaisi agrees that this is pigel. V'chayavan olav karas. But what about if Marshall has in mind lahaktir levaynta lemachar? What if he has in mind to smoke up the frankincense on the next day? Rabbi Yaisi says, pasul ve'ein by karas. That's pasul, but there's no karas. Now the reason why there's no karas is because Rabbi Yaisi says that you cannot be mefagel with a matter. Ein matter mefagel matter. The levina is in itself a matter. It permits the shirayim to be eaten. And he holds that you cannot be mefagel on one matter on another matter. While the Chacham say, the Chachamim pigel the chayavan olav karas. No. If he has in mind when he does the kmitza to smoke up the frankincense the next day, it's pigel and you're chayav karas. Amrulai, so they said to Rabbi Yaisi, Ma shina zeh, Amrulai, they said to him, Ma shina zeh min hazevach. Why is this different than a carbon? By a carbon, if you do one of the four avodas hadam, having in mind to smoke up the sacrificial portions outside, it's possible to do it chutzlas manai, it's pigel. Amalahan, so Rabbi Yaisi says, Sha'azevach damayu b'sarai ve'emurav echad. By a carbon, the blood, the meat, and the sacrificial portions are one. However, ulavaina eina min mincha. But the frankincense is external from the rest of the meal offering. Now, what this means, the Gemara is going to try to figure out. So the Gemara says, first, lamali lemisnei moed Rabbi Yaisi bezu. Why does Rabbi Yaisi say that if you do the kmitza having in mind to eat the shirayim or to smoke up the kmitza after its time, that it is pigel? Why would we think that Rabbi Yaisi disagrees with that? Says the Gemara, mishum de kabay lemisnei seifa, because it says in the seifa, lahaktir levaynta lemachar, to smoke up the frankincense on the next day. Rabbi Yaisi, I'm a pasul vein by karas. Since Rabbi Yaisi says that you have a mind to smoke up the frankincense, chutzlas manai, it's not pigel. Maybe he holds it's not pigel because ain't pigel b'chatzi matter. Maybe he holds you have to have in mind both to do the kmitza and the levina. And then he would argue on the Reisha too, and he would hold if you have in mind just to do the kmitza, it's also not pigel. Mao the same at time to Rabbi Yaisi mishum de kisaver ein mefaglan b'chatzi matter. And it's only pigel if you have in mind when you do the kmitza to smoke up both the kmitza and the levina after its time. And then, v'afilu Reisha nami, he would argue that if you just have in mind the kmitza, it also would not be pigel. Kamash malan, no, the baha moida. In that, he agrees that if you have in mind when you do the kmitza to smoke up just the kmitza, that is pigel. However, lahaktir levaynta lemachar, if you have in mind to smoke up the frankincense on the morrow, Rabbi Yaisi, I'm a pasul ve'ein by karas. It's pasul, but there's no karas. Why does he hold that if you have in mind to smoke up the frankincense on the next day, why isn't that pigel? So Amarei Shlakish, Aimer Haya Rabbi Yaisi, Ein Matir Mefagel Es HaMatir. Because one matter cannot be mefagel another matter. You see, just like the kmitza, smoking up the kmitza permits the shirayim, smoking up the levina also permits the shirayim. So both of them have a din of a matir. And Rabbi Yossi says that you cannot have a machshava of pigel from one matir to another matir. And similarly, he would hold that if you smoke up, remember the lechem aponim had 2 spoonfuls of frankincense. We smoke up those 2 spoonfuls, and then the bread becomes permitted. So each spoon is a matir. He would hold that if you do 1 spoon, having in mind to do the other spoon, chutzlas manai, it wouldn't be pigel. Because similarly, as the Gemara says, v'chein ata omer b'shnei bozichei levaina shalechem aponim, she'ein matir mefagel es hamatir. So if you have in mind, when you do 1 spoon to smoke up the other spoon after it's time, it's not mefagel. Now, my v'chein ata omer, isn't that exactly the same thing? Says the Gemara, no. Ma'od the same at time of the Rabbi Yossi b'levaina. The reason why it's not pigel is mishum de lav mina de minchahi. It's not a species of the mincha. The mincha is flour, and the levaina is a completely different species. It's a sap of a tree that hardened, and maybe that's why. Avol b'shnei bazicha levaina, the 2 spoonfuls of frankincense, that they're all 1 min, the mina da'adadin, and they're all 1 min, ema mefagle adadi. I might think that they would cause one another to be pigel, kamash malan. So the Gemara says, but we got a problem. You're telling me the reason of Rabbi Yossi why he holds that if Marshall has in mind when he does the kmitza to smoke up the levaina the next day, you're telling me that the reason why it's not pigel is because ein matir mefagel matir. But that's not the reason the Mishnah gives. Umi matzis amr taimid Rabbi Yossi b'levaina is la mishum de la mina de mincha. It's not because it's not the same type as the mincha, but that's the reason that Rabbi Yossi gives in the Mishnah. Why is this different than a sacrifice? The blood and the meat and the sacrificial portions is one. But so it seems to be that the reason why he holds that it's not pigel is because it's not the same species as the mincha, not because a matter mefagel matter. Says the Gemara, no. My eina mina mincha. What does it mean that it's not part of the mincha? Eina be'ikiv mincha. It's not part of the disqualification of the mincha. You see, if you don't smoke up the kmitza, you can't eat the shirayim. But that's not true, that if you don't smoke up the kmitza, you can't be makriv the levaina. You can be makriv the levaina before you smoke up the kmitza. It's not the same as the kmitza withholds the allowance to eat the shirayim. The kamadolam miskata kaimetz, because as long as you're not makta the kaimetz, lo misakle yishmayim. It's not true that hachanami ma'akav la levaina. It's not true that the kmitza impedes the frankincense. To the contrary, you could smoke up the frankincense before the kmitza. If you want, you could smoke up the kmitza first. Or you could smoke up the levaina first. So it's independent of the kmitza. That means it's a matter on its own. Now, v'rabanan, ki amrinon ein matter mefagel es hamater. There is a case where the rabbanan agree that a matter is not mefagel a matter. And that's on Shavuos by the Kifsei Atzeres. On Shavuos, by the lambs of Shavuos, we know that we bring 2 lambs, and those 2 lambs permit you to eat the shtei alechem, the 2 loaves. Now, each lamb is a matir. There, the Rabbanan agree that if you do 1 lamb, having in mind to do the other lamb chutz l'zmanai, it doesn't disqualify. So there they hold that ein matter mefagel es a matter. Rabbana kiyam rinan ein matter mefagel es a matter. So here again, the parentheses really helps us out. Gabi shochat echem and ekvasim, shechtling one of the lambs on Shavuos. Lechel mechaveru lamocha. The amrit that it doesn't mefagel, the amrit shneim ksherim. Hani mili echad lo ikva b'chad mana. That's because it wasn't sanctified in one vessel. The two lambs are not sanctified in one vessel. But here by the Levina, where it's sanctified in one vessel, the Levina is put on top of the mincha. Aval heicha di ikvu b'chad mana kechad dami, and therefore the Rabbanan hold that if Marshall does the kmitza to smoke up the Levina after its time, since it was sanctified in one vessel, it does become pigel, and it is an Issachar. Now, here's an interesting one. We know Marshall is the Zorist Zor that we know. Notice that Zorist and Skirius is very close. Marshall is the Zorist Zor that we know. If Marshall scoops off the Levina from the mincha in order to smoke it up, and then you know what Marshall says, I did enough damage. He gives it to Yitzi, and Yitzi smokes it up. Does he disqualify it just by scooping it off the mincha? So the Gemara says yes. Amar Reb Yanai, the Gemara has Marshall's number. Amar Reb Yanai, liket levina bizarre pasul. If Marshall scoops up the frankincense from the mincha, and he curtails his naughtiness, then he gives it to Yitzi, and Yitzi puts it on the mizbeach. So the Gemara says, too late, pasul. My time. Well, what's the reason? Because he's helping to bring it to the mizbeach, and we hold that even though Marshall didn't move his feet, kasavar halacha shaloi beregel shma halacha, and vaylacha bizar, and this bringing it towards the mizbeach is psula. So now the Gemara says,
what if he put it right back?
What
if Marshall put it right back?
That's another shayla. That the Gemara doesn't go into. Now, Amar Rab Mari, Afanan Nami Tanina. Remember we said that there's parallels by carbon this four avoid the shkrita kabbalah ilacha and zrika, and by mincha is four avodas kmitza, kiddush bekeli, halacha, and haktara. So the Gemara says, Amar Mari Afanan Nami Tanina, Zaklal. This is the general principle. Kala kaimates. If you take the kmitza of a nice bekeli or mekadishin in a keli, va'moilech, or bring it to the southwest corner, or va'maktir, or smoke it up. So the Gemara says, let's see how these four parallel the four avodas by karbanos. Bishlam kaimates, the kmitza, that's tantamount to shchita. Hainu shoichet. Moilech nami, bringing it to the southwest corner. Nami hainu moilech. Maktir, smoking it up. Hainu zarik. That's tantamount to the putting on the blood on the mizbeach. Elanoisin bekeli, putting it in the keli. Mike of it. What is that analogous to? Ilay mamishim dudami lekabbalah. It's similar to the catching of the blood of the carbon, but it's not similar. Midami hasam b'meila. There, the blood goes into the keli by itself. Hacha kashaka v'rami. Here, you're putting it in the keli, so it's not really analogous. Elamai, what are you going to say? Anything that's necessary to get the job done is considered an avodah. Ella, mishum de kaven de loy sagya de loy avidla. It's not enough if you don't do it. You have to be mekadishin in the keli. Avoida chashuvahi. It's considered an avoida. Al karchach mashvela kekabala. So even though it's not completely analogous, we compare it to catching the blood. So here, you can't get the levina on the mizbech without scooping it off the mincha. Hachanami kevin deloy sagila deloy avidla. It's not enough if you don't do it. Avoida chashuvahi. It's considered an avoida. And al karchav mashvela kialacha. It's like bringing it to the mizbech, and that's why Marshall disqualifies it. Says, well, no. Maybe if Marshall scoops it up, it's not an avodah. What about being mekadishin in the keli? That's like Kabbalah. What's the difference if it's memela or not? The main thing is it goes into a klei sharis. Says the Gemara, la'olam dedami leKabbalah. The reason why Kiddush B'Keli is considered an Avodah is because it's like catching the blood. That by the carbon, it goes into the Keli, spurting from the neck by itself, and here you put it in, there's no difference. Both are you sanctify in a Keli, Mali Mamela, Mali Kashak Rami. What's the difference if it happens by itself or you put it in? But Eino Kanami over here, where Marshall scoops it up, maybe that's not considered an Avodah Chashuva. And if Yitzi puts it on the Mizbeach, maybe it's good, and it doesn't disqualify the Mincha. Okay, Rabbi said this was a big job. We're going to stop over here. First of all, we remind you that even if it snows to the kazoo, Mitzvah Hashem, as long as we have power, there'll be shir tomorrow night at 8. We hope to see you. And now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis. If you could believe it, I know it's hard to believe, but if you could believe it, we're starting the 9th and the final parak of Arachin. I mean, it's going to really help us when we're going to learn. You know, we're really getting the best of the worlds over here. We're learning these Masechtas before we're going to learn them in the Daf. So it really gives us a background. Let's just set up over here.